really thought that he would be as good as he was when he was playing for Inter, and being able to create chances himself and not waiting for crosses. But nothing happened the way he should have been. And I know he might go back to Inter. I want to know how the fans, the tifosi, are going to react to that, because I remember they were very upset towards him when he left Inter to go to Chelsea.
What do you think, Shaka? Do you think it's a shame the way it turned out for Lukaku at Chelsea?
I don't know if shame is the right word to use. It was a huge disappointment, especially when I consider what I thought Lukaku was going to bring to Chelsea, who at the time reigning European champions, given the start to management at Chelsea that Thomas Tuchel had. And then the season started so well, and it tailed off for both Lukaku and Chelsea, and it felt like a huge letdown in the end. And if this loan move goes ahead again, like the Pogba deal, it's one that I think is in the best interest of all three parties involved.
Nobody had higher expectations for Romelu Lukaku at Chelsea than Julien Laurent. When we asked for the Premier League predictions at the beginning of the season, he predicted him to be top scorer and player of the year. How were so many, including yourself, so fooled by this, Jules?
It's a good question. I even thought they would win the league, to be fair. I just thought he was the last piece in the jigsaw. A jigsaw that, as Craig said, was already well started under Tuchel. That Tuchel had something so positive going, and that he would just come in and slot in and would do well. But I don't think Tuchel helped in the end. I don't think Romelu really wanted to leave Inter. And to go back to the question that Frank just asked, the Tifosi would be delighted, because they never wanted him to leave, and I don't even think he really wanted to go. They had to sell him like they had to sell Hakimi to get the money in, because they were in such a bad financial position, but he didn't want to leave. And I think one of the reasons why he didn't work out at Chelsea, there's many. There's himself, of course. There's Tuchel, who clearly didn't want to adapt his system and the way his team has been playing so successfully to Lukaku's strength. But there's also the fact that I wonder if psychologically he really wanted to be there at Stamford Bridge. So now it would make a lot of sense, but I just thought he would work well. I think, you know, other people as well, but it was one of the biggest, I think, disappointment really that we've seen in recent years for such a big player with such a big transfer fee. Let's not forget, because we haven't mentioned in this whole segment, that it cost them over 100 million euros. Over 100 million euros for then 15 goals in all competition, and such a feeling of failure is one of the biggest disappointments that we've seen in recent years.
He didn't handle the pressure very well, but he brought a lot of it on himself. And I mean, for those of, you know, Frank, Shaka and myself who played at the highest level, there's always pressure. But going back to the point Jules was talking about with Pogba, about needing an arm around him, he knows and he knew, once he had a great start, once he was successful at Inter, the fans adored him. And he walked on that pitch with the chest puffed out. I think even when he was scoring goals early on at Chelsea, and he was in his second time around, there was still scepticism from the stadium. There was still doubters in that crowd about whether he was the right man and whether he could drive them. And I think once he gave that interview that became so public and so messy around the Christmas and New Year time, the pressure got ramped up 10 times. And then every time he did take the field, the crowd were just waiting on a bad touch or a missed chance or a sitter or something flying over, and they were getting on his back. And so once you do these interviews and stuff like that, you've got to expect it's coming your way, and you've got to be able to handle that pressure, put it behind you and put on a performance. And lots of factors I know, but he brought that pressure on himself, and I think he knew the Chelsea fans, one, knew that he didn't want to be there, and two, in his mind, I think he thought the fans don't think he was good enough. And I think that was, and what we saw in the end was a player who went on the field with fear. And he wasn't doing that at Inter, and I'm presuming he won't do it if he goes back to Inter. But he was a player that looked scared getting on the field about making a mistake.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.